What's up, guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today's notes are going to be on function notation, so make sure you have a writing utensil and then something to write on. Alrighty. All right, so you might recognize this graph and table from when we were writing linear equations of graphs. We're going to be working with the same example. So go ahead and hit pause on this video to copy down the graph and the table. Okay, welcome back. So today's video, as you can see from the top of the screen, is going to be on function notation. So when we look at a table, we know that we can say all of our x values are going to be on the left and all of our y values are going to be on the right. Another way to say the y value is by calling it f of x. Okay, and we read that as f of x. That's what that f and then parentheses x is saying. And so what that means is it's just naming the graph. So this letter right here, the f, that's the name of our function. So we can go ahead and call our function or the graph f of x. Okay, so now let's go ahead and just backtrack a little bit. Let's pick out a point. So we've got the point 2, 8. Okay, and that's on our table, and we also know it's on our graph. It's going to be about here, right? Okay, this is just a sketch, by the way. Okay, so the point 2, 8. One way that I can express this idea is by saying if x is 2, if x equals 2, then y equals 8. Another way of expressing this idea is if the input is 2, then the output is 8. Okay, so that's another way of expressing that same idea. And what that means here is that input is talking about the x value, and output is talking about the y value. Okay, but mathematicians like to shorthand things because if we keep writing the statement when the input is 2, then the output is 8, that gets a little tedious and that gets a little lengthy and wordy, and then my hand starts to hurt. So then we get into something called function notation. Okay, and we use function notation to express the ideas that we just wrote above. So we shorthand the idea that when x equals 2 and y equals 8, like this. So we can say f of 2 equals 8. Okay, and so that is a third way of expressing that the point 2, 8 is on the graph. It's another way of expressing the point 2, 8 is on the table. Okay, so I want you guys to notice a couple things. So I want you to notice that the 2, which is inside the parentheses, is the input. So this is your x value. It's the x, it's the input, and because it's the input, it goes inside the parentheses. Okay, this 8 out here, this is your y value, aka your output. And because it's your output, it goes outside your parentheses. Okay, and then again, the f in front of it is just the name of our function. We can use any letter that we want, but I just decided to call this one f of x. Okay, so if I was trying to use, let's pick out the point now, 1, 6. So 1, 6. So we know our 1 is our x value and the 6 is the y value. If we wanted to use function notation to express that, we would say f because it's in the same table, so we're going to use the same letter. So f, 1 is your x, aka your input, so it's going to go inside the parentheses. And the y is your output, so it's going to go outside your parentheses. And this is how we use function notation to express points. Okay, let's look at another example. Okay, let's look at example 2. Again, go ahead, hit pause, and copy down that table. I'm going to go ahead and make a sketch of this graph. So I'm just going to go ahead and let me pick the point 0, 2 and put that on there. And let's put -4, 3. Whoops. Make that a little better. There we go. It doesn't have to be perfect, guys. It's just a sketch. Okay. So because this is a different table and a different graph, I'm going to give it a different name. So I want to call this graph G. So that means when I'm talking about the y's, I'm going to be talking about G of X. Okay, so the table G of X or the graph G of X. I picked a different letter because it's a different function. Okay, so now let's look at the point -4, 3, which is a point on our table and on our graph, and we've sketched it on there. So one way that we can express this point, again, is if x equals -4, then y equals 3. Another way of expressing this idea, again, is if the input is -4, then the output is 3. Okay. Now, if we're using function notation to express this idea, okay, we're going to use the letter G because that's the name of our new graph, of our new function. Okay. Now, take a minute and guess what number you think I'm going to put inside the parentheses. If you said -4, then you're absolutely right, okay? -4 is your x value, which means it's the input, which means it's going inside your parentheses. Okay, so that means your y value, aka your output, is going to go outside your parentheses. Okay, go ahead and take a minute, and I want you guys to use function notation. So again, function notation is this idea to express the points 12, -1, 4, 1, and -8, 4. Hit pause, and when you come back, we'll go over it. All right, guys, welcome back. So here are the solutions to those answers. So you should have written G of 12 equals -1. You should have written G of 4 equals 1. And you should have written G of -8 equals 4. Okay. Now, it's also important to note, just a quick note, I could have also written this as 4 equals G of -8. These two things are saying the same thing. Okay, they're just reversed. As long as -8 is inside your parentheses, then you're good to go because remember, -8 is your x value, so it should go inside the parentheses at all times. All right, guys, that's all for now.